good to be with all of you. Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations to Senator Norris and the CSG Task Force team. I think that you answered the challenge, and I have to brag on Senator Norris and the CSG Task Force in challenging themselves to be creative, out of the box, forget the partisanship, and dig down and find solutions. And I'm very, very confident that if you examine the report, you'll see that very character coming to life in the work. I don't really know exactly where to start. Ms. Phillips shared some things. I could talk about the tinkering on a watch and talk about something in the news where a young man made a clock and took it to school. Not to say that get on any political side there, but I think the lesson for me there is that there's a generation that she was talking about, and now we have a young man who builds a clock, and no one at school knows the difference between a clock and a bomb. So we're so far removed from that. Why are we here? Well, I grew up, neither one of my parents graduated high school. I'm a first generation college attendee and college graduate, and I got my first degree when I was 51 years old. So I'm non-traditional. I have a commercial driver's license in my back pocket and all the other things that Representative DeBerry told you about. So I don't know why I'm here, to be frank about it. But I grew up in a home, maybe some of you are old enough to know it. My mother wasn't a great seamstress, but she could do enough to get by. She was a great cook, canned all summer and fall long, jellies, jams, chow, relish, whatever you might want to think that our needs would be. And every one of us was in the kitchen with an old hand crank grinder clamped to the table, helping her. Guess what we were doing? We were measuring. We were learning a little bit about chemistry, acidic, sweet. When we needed a new room added to the house, I was a family of 7, we built it. My father always considered himself a cobbler, not a carpenter. But that was before building ordinances. That was before contractor licensing rules. I'm not speaking poorly of that. I think that's all made us a much healthier, safer, better place. We changed the brakes on all of our vehicles. We changed the spark plugs. We changed points and condensers before we had high electrical ignitions. But we don't do those things anymore. We've just transformed and assimilated into our society and distanced ourselves. There's certain things we do. And I have a 24-year-old who 6 more hours maybe graduate with an education degree. I have an 18-year-old graduation from high school. I think he's going to make it without me knocking on the table. And if either one of them had a flat tire, they'd have 2 options. And both of those options would require one of these. Because they'd either call their dad if they thought they could deal with the shame and embarrassment that I would deal to them, or they could YouTube a video. Hopefully they call me because I want to make sure they do it safely. My point is that when I got elected to the legislature in 2000, and I started hearing things about workforce education and workforce training and manufacturing, I thought, you mean we have to train somebody to work in a factory? I thought all of us grew up with those type of skills, but we didn't because we got removed from it. Now, industrial maintenance is understanding DC electronics to the point of doing board diagnostics and plug and play. It's no longer about whether bearings are within tolerance and you're changing the bearings. Now, when a bearing's out of tolerance, and if you can't get one delivered in 3 to 5 days, guess what you do? Go to a 3D printer, possibly, and make you a bushing. Put it in there, turn it at a slower speed because of the friction that it won't take, but you still got production for 3 to 4 days till the bearing gets there. That's what's happened in our workforce. So that's why we're here in large part. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some programs. Oh, by the way, I am from higher education now, they tell me. And I didn't bring a 600-page textbook to teach out of. I have these notes here. So I'll spend my hour and a half on these notes. I do also agree with Ms. Phillips entirely when she says we're on the verge of unleashing an unbelievable generation of workforce development and talent, because my kids I think they have some unrealized analytical ability from the creativity of living as a millennial in the technology world. And when we couple that with hand skills and critical thinking skills, I think we are going to unleash an unbelievable opportunity in our country. And I agree with you completely. I'll go back and brag on you to Eddie Drilling, okay? So I think when the creativity and the skill development are properly homogenized into an individual, we're going to have a great amount of success. The two programs I don't really know why I'm here, by the way. I told you that. Because I could talk to you about politics, I could talk to you about internal combustion engine, or I could talk to you about higher education, but I'm going to try to talk on all three of them real briefly. In the report is a highlighted section on Arkansas's Career Pathways Initiative. Now, I'll be the first to tell you it needs to have its name changed. We talk about career pathways all the time. But it is a successful program. The Department of Education and Health and Human Services have recognized it as one of the top 10 welfare to work programs in the country. Tell you a little bit about it. We operate it with federal TANF dollars. We have a waiver from the feds for that. And what it does is it takes a population that has to be 250% of FPL and a custodial parent, and then we can provide tuition assistance, transportation assistance, child care assistance, tuition and fees and books, and licensing costs to the student. So that started in 2005 when I was Speaker of the House. I wish I could take credit for it. It was one of those things that happened under the radar, and that's usually where good things do happen. And since 2005, we have had 33,000 folks come through the doors. We've had almost 31,000 completers. And we measure employment at exit, 6 months and 1 year. And at 1 year out, we have 86 to 87% retention of employment at an average of 47% increase in wages. And this is focused on the most difficult to serve population that each of us have. So any of you all want to know more about that, there's some wonderful people in Arkansas at both DWS and higher education that can give you more. You can contact me and I'll get you in touch with them. But we think it's really, we know what to do. Sometimes we just find it difficult to get there. The second program in Arkansas we have is career coaches. I see Miss Douglas shaking her head. She's quite familiar with these programs. What we do with career coaches is we recognize, just as most of you have, that there is a difference in advising, a difference in coaching, and a difference in managing. And so what we have done is in 33 of the Arkansas counties with the poorest economic data, we have focused one career coach per 550 students, and it has worked extremely well in keeping students focused on post-secondary credentials in and around their home. And many of them don't recognize it. I've been told the story of a pair of students in north central Arkansas that wanted to go into welding, and they were signing up to go to this big welding school out of state, not understanding that there was one of the best welding programs anywhere 30 miles down the road at ASU Heber Springs. So one of those students was third in the country at USA Skills USA just this last summer as a welding student. But those are two programs that we have focused on the difficult to serve population, because one of the things that I've heard Representative DeBerry speaking to specifically is keeping things in balance. If we focus For instance, Arkansas has 33,000 high school graduates annually. Parse out the ones that are going to go into a professional degree is predetermined either by them or their parents, maybe a doctor, maybe a healthcare field, maybe a professional educator. Get on down the list. We have 1.3 million people employed in the state of Arkansas. We're not going to fix our employment circumstances focused on 33,000 high school graduates. If we don't recognize that K-12 and higher education, yes, the people I work for, have failed a significant population that came before those graduates, we're not going to change anything. So what I heard Representative DeBerry talk about was the population. We know that no matter what the program offering is, no matter what the quality of the instruction, no matter what the quality of the certificate, if the student's not properly nutritioned, they're not going to learn. And all the complications that come from that. So here's what's going to happen. If it hasn't already happened in your states, it will. The folks I work for, higher education, I have 22 bosses. And getting them to change, we'd probably all rather go down a slide bare-butted on sandpaper into a pool of alcohol than to try to get them to change. They just seem to be a little resistant to it. But they're going to have to. For instance, not just them, but pretty much all state government agencies, nobody wants to be held accountable to a higher level. They'll tell you, well, I got to have more people, I got to do this. Well, there's some truth to all that. But it doesn't matter. Every one of you are in a world of accountability. If you say a 4-letter word today, someone's going to tweet that out, and you'll have 5,000 people in your district that'll know about it. It's instant. And so accountability is just going to have to be part of it. And my folks are coming around to the fact of understanding it. And one of the reasons that you find yourself at odds with the business community is that they feel like they're accountable. Ms. Phillips over here, I promise you, she knows what accountability measures are in her world with AT&T. So we're going to collide. I think the focus here is quit chasing the pendulum. Now, I've been around longer than some and less than others. And I can tell you that I've seen it swing from one side to the other and back and forth to the point where I've got vertigo. Chase it to the middle. Keep this focus on the business community is going to look at their bottom line, and that's a good thing. They need to, because we need them to be there every day, and they can't be there if they're not profitable. And my folks are going to look at their turf and their druthers. But what we both ought to be focused on is long-term future and success to our student delivery. So when you get in the room, if you're not careful, you're going to have a battle between the corporate community and the education community, and that's not beneficial to anybody. And they're going to be fighting over the money. So somehow someone's got to put the lion and the lamb together without bloodshed. And that's focusing on keeping the balance and keeping the focus on a common goal that everyone can agree with. I'm sure y'all hadn't seen any battles over money in any of your states. I'm sure that you have. I want to give you a few things, a few tips. One, I believe Representative DeBerry or Representative Sly one said something about data. We've all caught up with baseball. We measure everything now. Part of the problem is we've got so much data we can make it say about anything we want. Depends on which attitude we bring to the table. I'll leave that for y'all to figure out. But what I will tell you is that in working around wage records and school records, you'll bump up against something quite frequently called FERPA. And what I'm here to tell you is that it's not the big, dark, dooming cloud that everybody wants it to be. Whatever you want to figure out, FERPA, I believe, has ways to figure it out. The problem is your agency directors want to be completely in control of their own data. They don't want to share data from agency X to agency A. So the legislators are going to have to step in and moderate that discussion. But I assure you that on your data, if you want good employment records, you can get them. If you want to focus your program delivery, you can get it. And by the way, let's not chase too fast all the high wage, high demand areas either. We have to do that, and we're going to do that. I'm completely convinced of it. And in all likelihood, some of those high school graduates are going to graduate into those type of programs. But another job I had, I was a meat cutter once, 7.5 years. In fact, depending on whose data you want to believe, by the time you're 55 years old, you will either have changed careers 7 to 11 times. Now, I'm making up for somebody's average in here because I counted mine up and I've got twice that. Point is that when a Big River Steel comes to eastern Arkansas for 600 employees at an average of $60,000 per salary per individual, they are not going to be hiring entry-level people at $60,000. What they're going to do is purge the employment base that's in that area. Folks that are working in machine shops, folks that are showing up every day as a mechanic or a welder. And then what's going to happen? Those businesses are going to be suffering, looking for employment opportunities. Well, then what's going to happen is the sacker at Kroger that's been there a year and a half, making $10.50 an hour, that shows up for work every day, that speaks politely to the customers and understands what it means to have value about working, they're going to need to be retrained and retooled for the jobs that are being purged. So it's all ends of it. If you look at the back of that right here, I love the fact that they showed all these different work hats. It really is a comprehensive delivery model, not just focused on one thing or the other. I realize that the political battle is going to be economic in your states because there's way too much month at the end of the money, but I have faith and confidence that you guys can figure that part out. The last thing I'll share with you is something that I heard recently from somebody y'all might be familiar with, President Bill Clinton. My wife is the registrar at the Clinton School of Public Service, and he comes in every year and shows his appreciation to the employees and the volunteers and the faculty. And he said something that I've been trying to figure out how to say for 25 years, but he beat me to it. And that is, there are seldom ever any definite outcomes from economics and politics. The key to it, the trick to it, is to bend it in the right direction. So what you want to do is contribute to the solution in a way where you know you're moving the ball, you're changing the outcomes. Too often, as a former legislator, I would always want to find that really wonderful thing, that magic bullet, that universal, going to fix it all, going to go back home and tell my folks about it. It doesn't happen that often. In fact, the really transformative measures that I have seen in my 25 years happened in the margins. Barely got them over the line. Because one thing I learned as a meat cutter is that if I was going to do my job the best, my tools had to be good. The first thing I did every morning was I took my knives out of my scabbard and I found me a whetstone, a rock. I had to take those knives and rub them against something completely and totally abrasive to them to get them sharp. Conflict can be healthy. And if we can't defend our measures in a world of criticism, maybe we're in the wrong place. So I challenge all of you to don't look for the magic bullet that everyone likes, that everyone thinks is a wonderful solution. Probably not going to find real transformative measures in those circumstances. Let's just nudge the bar, bend it the right direction. Appreciate y'all letting me be here, and I'll be around to answer any questions, Jack.